Welcome to today's episode of Profit on Purpose podcast. Today we're going to be sitting down with Kip Morris, co-founder of 5 Star Home Services and the Emerge Recovery and Trade Initiative. Hi, Kip.
How you doing, Christian?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
This is already off to a great start.
Here we go.
I am so happy. I know. I one of the things that I was really hoping that we would get out of this podcast is I feel like you and I have a very intimate and special relationship. We've been building for about going on 3 years now. And I feel like a lot of people don't get insight into how you and I interact. So I'm really excited to bring some of that to this podcast.
I think people are going to get an opportunity to see that today.
So I want to start off with, your family started the business, actually not even as Pickerington Heating Cooling, correct?
Right.
It was started as
Eastland Heating and Cooling in 1972, and at the time we lived in the Eastland Mall area, and at that time Eastland Mall was like the place to go to.
Not so much anymore.
Maybe not so much anymore, but I think so. There's a lesson right there. So like everybody at that time was like, if a guy started a heating and cooling company like my dad's, it should have probably been called H.L. Morris Heating and Cooling or whatever. But he was savvy enough to recognize that if he get his ego out of the way and not have to have his name in the company, he might be able to benefit from that when people can relate to an area geographically. So Eastland at that time was a pretty good place to have a brand, and I think that's something I learned early from my dad is like, the name of the company is pretty important.
Right. Absolutely. So we have Howard to thank for
absolutely.
that strategy, actually.
No, all he did was Yellow Pages. And that's a whole story in itself because he did it for literally, I think, longer than anybody ever should have. And ended up having to nix that deal when the Yellow Page guy came in after I started working for my dad again in 2012.
So tell us kind of the origin story. Where does it go from Eastland Heating and Cooling, mom and pop, organization, all the way through to where we sit today? 3 metropolitan markets. We have over 200 employees, doing a lot of business in the community. So how does that happen?
So my dad is like indicative of a lot of people who start their own trade company, whether it be plumbing, electrical, or heating and cooling. He's a great installer, great service guy, not a great delegator, not a great business person. So when the company started in 1972 as Eastland Heating and Cooling, we then moved to Pickerington in 1976. And at that time, Pickerington was like a little podunk town. We were a single A school. And then as Pickerington began to grow, he changed the name of the company to Eastland Pickerington Heating and Cooling. And that probably happened around 1980.
Okay.
And then by the time I graduated in 84, he's like, well, man, Pickerington's really kicking now. So let's change it to Pickerington Eastland Heating and Cooling. So he kept the Eastland in there for, to be able to still service the east side. And then eventually it just turned into Pickerington Heating and Cooling. Pickerington got so big, and it was, demographically, it was a very desirable area to do business. So he just went to Pickerington Heating and Cooling. That was probably, sometime in early 2000.
Okay. And then you were out of the business at that point.
Yeah. So like my history with the business was, I worked for my dad till I was about 16. And then, and I was always, it's just not my gifting, construction type stuff. It's just not what God, created me to do. But it was a great way to make money in the summertime, for beer money, basically, and other things. So there was one day I was on a job, and my dad had an estimate because my dad did everything. He ran service, he installed, he did the installations. So he's like, I need you to go to this house. I need you to measure. He showed me what to measure the plenum, measure this, so that he was going to call him back and give him a price. Well, I just went in there and sold the job. And I didn't even know what I was selling, but they liked me, and they'd been a customer forever. And at that time, I sold the job for like $2,000 more than what he would have sold it for. And this is 1982, so like $2,000 then is like, I think $2 million today, right?
I believe that is the.
So my dad gave me like $200 and like, here, good job. And it was at that time that I knew that sales was for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get back into the business in around the 2014.
2012, actually.
Oh, okay, 2012.
Actually, 2010 as kind of a volunteer.
Okay.
For 2 years, just because I wanted the idea. I was bored.
Were you volunteering at 5 Star and raising goats at the same time?
No, I don't want to get into. I had a couple of side hustles going on at the time, but basically, I was in a position where my brother wanted to re-engage the company, and he had just gotten over his bout with addiction, and really the only way he could work for my dad is I rode with him every day, and we were living together at the time, and my business businesses were more, I could kind of determine my own schedule. And so for a while I rode with him, and then my brother got the trust back. And then it was 2000, probably 10-ish, 11, where it was like September, and my brother had already re-engaged the company. At that time, my dad's company was always my dad and a couple other guys.
Right.
And usually a guy who can run service and a guy who install, and he'd kind of flip back and forth. And so at the time, it was my brother-in-law, and then we had an installation crew. And it was September, and you make all your money in the summer to get you to March, and there was no money, and they were kind of freaking out. So can you come in and help us out? And I just came in and just kind of answered the calls, kind of get an idea what their marketing was. Because what I had done is I'd really established myself in the home improvement industry in sales and marketing.
Okay.
So, the idea that people actually called us and invited us into their home was kind of intriguing, because the types of things I did, you kind of had to lie, cheat, and steal to get in the door. Then you put them in a headlock and they had to buy today,
Right.
So they're like, come in. And so just started answering the phones and making some phone calls. All I did was just call all these invoices, because he wasn't computerized, and some people hadn't paid him. I tried to get the money, and if I got the money, they're like, hey, by the way, this is the time of year we do the tune-ups. Normally it's $99. If we schedule a day, it's $69. Sound like something you want to do? And they're like, yeah. And just from that, the sales they were able to get from that, got them through. And it was at that time, it was like, man, I think I'm kind of interested in this business. So, but what I started doing, I started asking people when they called in, like, how'd you hear about us? And they said, well, we saw your website. And I was like, I didn't know they had a website. Actually, they didn't even know they had a website. The Yellow Pages, who my dad was a consistent customer with, actually built a website for him.
I think he was their last customer, actually.
Right. I think you might be right. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, there was a website. It was a lot of misspelled words,
right.
But what I found out was, because people who lived in Pickerington that wanted a heating and cooling company, just by default, Pickerington Heating and Cooling showed up. So it didn't have a lot of content, and it wasn't an ideal website. But just because there was part of the Google algorithm is they're trying to match the company, the most applicable company, to the search terms. And somebody in Pickerington looking for a heating and cooling company, Pickerington Heating and Cooling popped up, and that was great. And we got it, and we got a lot of calls from Pickerington from the website,
right.
But we weren't getting a lot of calls in New Albany from the website. It's like, okay, how do we do this in New Albany? And then I engaged a local guy who knew SEO pretty well, good dude, and really started picking his brain, and finally landed on the idea that if we want to get into New Albany, and we have to start a company in New Albany.
Right.
So how can we do that in such a way that it doesn't have a lot of upfront capital, but you can really leverage, the search. When somebody in New Albany searches, you got to get a business there, and you got to get a company name, a full company. That's kind of what we started doing.
Okay.
Was just kind of going around Columbus, every other city, and starting a company, and then
kind of confusing a lot of people along the way too.
Yeah, and it's funny how God works, because the intention of doing that, the strategy there, the upside from it, and Mike Moeller will kind of tell you this, is things we didn't see, because eventually he came out with Google Guaranteed, which really played into that strategy. And but there was a day in the early days where the Yellow Page guy showed up. He wanted to review this, this $2,500 a month ad. At this point, my dad was the only one with a full page ad still. I'm like, I think we're gonna have to cancel this. He's like, well, would you do it for $200? Like, nope. I feel like
I'm discovering something. I feel like your dad's Yellow Pages was your KickServe.
Yeah.
Like the day that we left KickServe, I don't even know if they're still around. Well, I think we might have been propping them up.
There was a speech as we started to grow where my dad got to speak, and he did reference Yellow Pages. So it was, and it really did build his company. But
Right. So speaking of Howard, so how did the values that he instilled in you guys as kids, and then in the business, how have those carried through to today, and how have you brought that family kind of values to 5-Star?
Yeah, a lot of it was my dad, in the sense that, a lot of times if he went to a customer's house and they were definitively in need, he would do a lot of work for free, even at the expense of us getting, cool Nike Cortez tennis shoes. during certain times of the year. And then the other part of it was my mom. My mom was really involved in Pickerington. She started a July 4th celebration. Just did it. She got many 2 or 3 times where it was Jackie Morris Day. So she really had a heart for helping people and utilizing the business assets to do so. So it's kind of a combination of the two.
Now, a lot of people, I think there's probably a lot of our employees who don't know this, and I'm going rogue here with this one, but you and Brett both very athletic growing up, a lot of activities with sports, and you guys both went to college on soccer scholarships, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yeah.
How has kind of that part of you, that side of you, that athletic side, that competitive side translated to our business and helping us grow?
Yeah, so, just from a competitive perspective, I'm always looking to, be able to have a competitive advantage.
You're a little bit competitive?
A little bit. A little bit, and Brett is too. If you can channel that competitive spirit and really use it as a way to focus on yourself and not focus on what the other guys are doing, you can channel that in such a way to where, really, you're utilizing all that energy in a real positive way. When you start looking at what everybody else is doing and talking smack about other people. Yep. Yeah, I learned early in sales, when you kick dirt, you get dirty. You can't get around it. So, by focusing on what we're doing and the underlying thing that's motivating that is our competitive nature.
Right.
But, it's true. I want to take over the world with 5-star.
I think that was the first conversation you and I ever had.
Right.
So talk to me about kind of the origins of your passion for addiction recovery and where that comes from.
Comes from being addicted and then now being in recovery. So for me, what that looked like, in 2016, came home to find my brother, dead from an overdose, and the substance he overdosed on was actually Freon. And then from that, so I was 16 at the time, I was in active addiction for the next 20 years. You think that would have made me not want to do drugs, but it actually had the opposite effect. Sure. And kind of had a live for today kind of attitude. And so at 36 is when I had a spiritual awakening, and that's the day that I, formed a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and as a result, was immediately knew that my calling was to help guys who struggle with addiction. So that was about 20 years ago. So I had 20 years of addiction. Now I've got 20 years of recovery, and so that's what I've been doing the last 20 years. And what's been cool about 5-star is that, Brett started he was really the guy who initiated the Second Chance program, to where he was actually volunteering some time at the Refuge, which is a local ministry in Columbus for men who struggle with addiction, and started hiring guys. And what we saw was if there was an equation for recovery, and there's not, but if there was,
right.
And if a viable career path or viable career was one of those variables, it's a variable in that equation of recovery that bears a lot of weight. And we saw it firsthand. About 3 out of 4 guys that would come in that had struggled with addiction would walk it out without relapsing. In the industry, if you're in the double digits at all, you're doing good.
Yeah.
We saw recovery organizations that we formed partnerships with that had about a 15% success rate, 15 to 20%. With those same guys, we were getting a 75% success rate. So it bears a lot of weight on people's ability for a lot of reasons that are obvious. Not having to go back and do the things you've always done,
right,
to put food on the table and pay rent. So it's been a way that we could do business, and then also what I call doing what's my purpose is, or my ministry at the same time. It's actually, and it happened organically.
Right. And
what happened as a result of that is when we went through our growth stages, where we grew from essentially 1 million to 44 million in 6 or 7 years. One of the reasons we're able to do that is because we were able to get employees at a time where everybody in the trades was having trouble finding anybody to work, let alone grow at the scale that we did. So, the blessings went both ways.
Yeah. I love to think about it like when the traditional HVAC or contractor in general, right, when they go out into the world and they look for people, they go to, there's like, and I think, I'm very visual. So they go to two pools, right? And I literally think of a pool filled with people,
Right.
The first pool is like, I'm going to go take your people.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to take your people from you and take them to my side, right?
Yep.
And that's people spend a lot of time and money on that, as we
Yep.
know.
Right.
The second pool is I'm going to go to the high school. Right, I'm gonna somehow convince a 17-year-old kid that the best thing he could do is come be an installer for me, right?
Yep.
And not that that's not a great avenue to go, but I think taking and looking over here at this pool that nobody else is even looking at, and the amazing thing that I find is when we give these people a second chance, they are so loyal to us because nobody else was willing to help them. Nobody else now adds a layer of complexity to our business. Right? Adds some things that maybe are challenges,
I think one of those layers of complexity was when we joined Lowe's. We did the background checks.
We discovered that we had some holes there, maybe.
Yeah.
But absolutely, and then I always think of it like about, let's say 50% of our employees are second chance and 50% are not. Well, the 50% that are not, I would say 75-80% of them have still been affected by the drug and alcohol addiction epidemic. So when they see the things that we're doing, and I always joke, right? We give second chances like 10 or 12 times, right? It's like, it's not just one time, right? Yeah. So we very recently went through a bit of a transition, which I'm personally very grateful and thankful for. I know you and I have talked about that a lot. As you transition into your new role as president of the board of directors, and I transition into my new role as CEO of 5-Star, what legacy do you hope to leave? What impact do you hope to leave on 5-Star?
So that's a great question. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you asked.
Thank you.
As he stalls to try to think of the best answer. I wish I would have read these questions beforehand. So the first thing, let me kind of go back a little bit. First of all, in order for that even to happen, just so, because even a year ago, it wasn't clear, that and for me, it's like not just 5-Star, but just everything that we embrace as far as profit on purpose. It was important for me that when I did hand it off, that person at least was believed in it as much as what I do, and so it's only fitting that the guy who came up with the term profit on purpose be the guy who kind of steps into my role. So to me, it's like raising a kid and then taking that kid and dropping them off for college the first day. You're not going to be able to spend as much time with them, but that they're going to grow, and you're always there for them. So I think my role will be more of a, always be there for you. We still talk. But it's as far as like, the legacy has already happened, and that's just the lives that we've touched so far. We can't even count how many people have come through in the last 6 or 7 years. We couldn't list them all. And then, and then the part that's really kind of immeasurable is like, if you're to take each one of those individual situations and just the ripple effect that would happen as a direct result of each one of those people being able to reclaim everything they lost during their addiction. So that's the legacy right there. Now there's things that happen as a result, emerge, of course, being one of them. And, we don't put this out there a lot, but I mean, 5-Star Home Services has almost given to a fault, if there is such a thing, which there's not, of course. There's a law that operates that, and it all goes into, the concept of, whatever seed you sow, you're going to reap the harvest of that. So if you're sowing good seeds, you're going to have a good harvest. And so, but, it's funny because we had a conversation today where, you're just so willing to throw money in a merchant kit. I'm like, hold on there, Skippy. So that's the spirit right there. And then, being able to, at some point in the future, be able to do Merge 2.0 in Columbus, because it's one thing to have it here. The people in Dayton who are here every day, it's like, it's real easy for them to resonate with what's going on. But, a lot of times the guys in Columbus and Cincinnati, unless they're here for a meeting or training or something, they don't get to see it. So being able to do it in Columbus and Cincinnati both, something that's exciting to me. And the Emerge model and how it operates is something that's self-sustaining and replicable. And right now we're already forming that template so that we can hand that off to maybe other companies that like to give to a fault.
Yeah.
and then because you got to have that. I mean, you got
to,
you know, that, and I also throw a little shout out to Van Martin Roofing and Doug Van Dyke, Chris Adams and Narrow Path Plumbing, which is now 5-star. But all three of us, really been willing to do whatever it takes fiscally to make this thing happen. But a lot of the money that was spent on the heavy lifting to get it up and going, that you don't have to do that again.
Right.
Going back to your question, for me, the important thing was being able to hand it off to the right person. And I didn't know if I'd ever find that person. And it was, I'm glad you came along when you did. And the moment I met you, I thought you might be that guy. And sure enough, here we are. Some
peaks and valleys with that decision along the way.
Well, I went through a refining process in the 3 years together, and had to, refine myself in such a way to talk you off the cliff. Because,
couple times.
Yeah, because sometimes,
couple extended dinners with the wives, or.
I think, you look back as a salesman, you kind of look back at your sales career and like, man, what was the best deals that you ever closed? And probably 2 of them were talking you into not leaving.
Twice.
Actually 3 times, but who's counting?
That's fair. I think when I think about, I'm going to answer my own question. So when I think about the legacy that you leave on 5-star, obviously it's profit on purpose. And a lot of people will ask, like, Christian, why would we call it profit on purpose? Because profit for purpose makes more sense phonetically, but these people are not in marketing or branding. They don't understand that pop, it sounds way better than poof. Yeah. Poof just doesn't have that impact,
We tried PFOP, but yeah, pop's better.
Pop's better. So, the things that you've said to me, and you actually you said this to me one time about your personal life and how one of the prayers you pray to God is, God, make me give till it hurts, right? And I think that is a legacy that you leave on 5-star, but it is, like you said, it's not in a negative way, because everything that we give to God, we get back and it's not always seen, right? And what do you always say? We're not building the wealth for right now, right?
Yeah, we're not looking for earthly treasures. We're looking for heavenly treasures. But also, what I found is this: there's another law that operates, that when you aim for heaven, you get earth thrown in, and when you aim for earth, you get neither. So, I think one of the things that kind of separates us from other companies is the fact that we're not rigidly attached to money, although you want to have some attachment to it.
It does help to run the business.
But
it does make buying that next truck we need easier when the money's there to buy it with.
But if anybody ever doubts the cliche saying that you can't outgive God, I will circle back to last year.
We tried.
We did, and you know what? Where we're at right now, where we're moving, and where we're going, is evidence that you truly can't outgive God.
You talked a little bit about kind of the future of 5-star and the future of Emerge and that partnership continuing. Can you expand just on what your vision is for Emerge and the 5-star partnership?
I mean, it's just opportunity. Emerge has got is an ecosystem where somebody who's in addiction today can come in, get the clinical services they need, get on a career path. And a lot of times, where the guys want to go is the trades.
Yeah.
And there's multiple career paths, multiple different organizations that we have partners with. But, so I, especially here in Dayton, where they're all in the same building, the guys living, the company, and the trade school, just continuing to be able to, leverage the schooling with the opportunity for employment, and then also the opportunity to get everything they need to live a life where they can reclaim all things lost, whether it be family, house, cars, things like that. And I, with the potential to be able to do it in the other markets that we're currently in and will be in the future under your leadership, it's pretty exciting because, there's no limit as to where we can take this and how many lives can be affected.
I bumped into a guy in the hallway just today, and he stopped me and said, hold a spot for me. Hold a spot for me at 5-star. These guys are so excited about it. I've always believed, and I don't get to talk about it as much anymore. Early days of Emerge, I got to sit in on a lot of Emerge stuff, and I got to pitch Emerge a lot to people and tell people. I don't get to do it as much anymore, but I've always loved the idea that, what we built 5-star to do is generate profit, right? That's what we are for, right? We're a for-profit business, and we're good at it, and then that profit spins and feeds Emerge, right? Or places like Emerge, but Emerge is a perfect example. And then if Emerge can generate that human capital that we need, sends it back to 5-star, 5-star grows, more profit, more emerges, everybody's doing better. And the thing I think I love about Emerge more than anything, I was thinking about this last week as Elaine and I were talking, is that when I think of most recovery type places, their model is set up in such a way that they're not set up to get people back out into the world and help them in the same way that you guys are doing at Emerge. I truly believe the people at Emerge, if you ran out of customers, you guys would be thrilled.
Yes.
Right?
Repeat business isn't good.
Right. And that's not always the same feeling that you get.
5-star is great.
Yeah.
Emerge not so much.
Okay, so I think you had a question for me now, actually.
Yes, all right. Let me see here. Who do you think you are? Seriously, who do you think you... No. All right.
I was ready to answer.
You know where that comes from, right?
I do, but remind me.
I'm going to let you figure it out. All right. So, Christian, I have a question for you.
Oh, great.
Kip to ask. Wait, I should read that part.
No, you don't read that part.
What do you see going forward with Profit on Purpose in this podcast?
So something you just talked about, right? Businesses that give until it hurts them. I want to introduce people to the idea of what Profit on Purpose is. I want to introduce people to how you can utilize Profit on Purpose in your business. And it's the thing that we've struggled with for 2.5 years. How do we do this in such a way that we are honoring our commitment to God, we're honoring our commitment to the community, but we're not leveraging it as a way to make ourselves better or get more business or whatever. So it's that balancing act of, what's the thing you've always told me?
I've told you a lot of things, so you can be a little more specific.
You have told me a lot of things. To never let the right hand know what the left hand is doing, right? From a giving perspective, right?
Correct, yeah.
However, our employees need to know because they need to know the why behind the what, right? And the reality is our customers need to know because if I'm sitting at the kitchen table and the customer's making a decision on a water heater or a furnace or a repair, and they know that the dollars they're going to spend with us are going to go to something in the community that might affect them directly, they might make a different decision. So I want to talk to business owners. I want to learn from other business owners. How are they doing it? What are they doing? I want to expose it to people who aren't doing, who might be interested in doing it. And then I think learn from some of the nonprofits that are connected with a strategic partner, like how 5-Star and Emerge are connected. How does that impact them? How does it make their lives easier as a nonprofit to know that they have this business that is profitable, that they can kind of rely on to kind of keep them afloat when things aren't always as good? Because you can't always count on donations, right? And those things, people kind of come and go from that perspective. As far as Profit on Purpose in general, I believe Profit on Purpose has the opportunity to go nationwide. I believe we can take it into so many areas. I think we can be a leader in the Profit on Purpose space, teaching other businesses how to do it. But you and I talked about this the other day. You can't be Profit on Purpose until you have the first word, which is profit, right? So helping businesses first just understand how to, have accurate accounting, how to have operational efficiency, how to lead with a purpose-driven culture. And then once you have those pieces in place, now show them how to take that profit out into the world and honor the community with it. So I think that would be where I'd like to see it go.
I can't wait to see it happen. Watching from afar.
I want to give you an opportunity to close with any final thoughts or anything that you want to share. Yeah,
so I'm thankful for the season that we're in right now and the year coming up. If there are any people who own businesses out there, I would encourage you to get a hold of Christian. I was thinking as you were kind of describing there at the end, kind of the legacy part of it. There may be businesses out there that have another purpose. But what's so unique about the relationship that we have with Emerge is that the blessings go both ways, and it kind of happen organically.
Yeah.
So just showing people, not necessarily, and you don't necessarily have to have, be able to employ the people you're blessing through the ministry, but just the idea of giving till it hurts, making the point of giving not maybe things that you get in this life, but in the life to come. And what I do know is that God knows our heart. And when our heart's in the right place, whether we're giving to something to where there's a symbiotic relationship, where they work and you help, or whether it's just a good purpose, the blessings will come. That's you can't, the law, what goes around comes around. You can't escape it either way. And you always want to be on the right side of that law.
Absolutely.
And one way is just to really.
I appreciate you very much, just from my friendship and personally. But I especially appreciate you being willing to come on and be our first guest on the Profit on Purpose podcast. So thank you.
You could ask me what my favorite pop is?
Yeah. So yes, we are going to start that right now. So thank you for reminding me. So Kip, and I call it soda, but that doesn't work.
Yeah.
From a branding perspective for our podcast. So
Right.
what is your favorite pop?
POP was my favorite pop. I don't drink pop. I don't drink it.
I know you don't. I know you drink sparkling water with a lime.
But if I were to drink pop,
Yes.
what do I drink? I hate all pop.
If you wait, how about this? Let's do like a word association. If you were a pop, what pop would you be and why?
Okay.
I'm gonna come up with one for you too.
Oh man, I would probably be Dr. Pepper.
I was thinking you were gonna say Dr. Pepper. You know what I was thinking?
What?
Do you remember Barks root beer?
Oh, that was my second choice.
Do you know what their slogan is?
What?
Barks has bite.
I think I want to be Barks.
I think
and people can't use. You can't use the same one twice, right?
No, I'm gonna make everybody come up with their own.
Okay, so I'm Barks.
You're Barks. Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
Barks, right, or Barks?
It was BARQS, I think. Barks.
Q or G?
I thought it was a Q.
But root beer, they use herbs, so.
Oh, that
and
makes
I'm
so
kind
that's
of- I'm a master herbalist.
bit of an herbalist, yeah.
Self-proclaimed master.
It is a Q.
herbalist,
Yep. They had a moment there. They had a real moment.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I don't drink soda either or pop, so I don't really pay attention to what sodas are out there. But all right, well, listen, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I think if you're open to it, we're probably going to have you on again.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Kim.
Love you, buddy.
Love you. Thanks for joining us today. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to give us a follow and leave a review.